attacked by an owlbear.
We're being attacked by an owlbear. He raided our campsite. Hey, this is Andy with Rocket City Pinball. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you how to install the Snowy Forest campsite scene for Dungeons & Dragons. If you take a look at the game here, you'll see we have these big chunky flashers down here at the bottom of the game. We also have them on the back wall. I don't like them there either, so I've got some mods in work to replace those. Those are not the final versions, but rough drafts. But in any case, these two down here, the Mimic scene, there are a lot of modders working on stuff for that already, so I don't have any plans to make something for there. But in a lot of cases, you can buy a mod that'll replace that one. You've got a dragon scene, you've got the tavern scene, you got the cube. The tavern here is Cairo Labs, Tiny's Teeny Tavern, but the rest of the game still have a large plastic there to set that scene. So it didn't really feel balanced either. It felt like you've got all these scenes around here, but you don't really have anything down here. So in the need to better balance it out and to replace this dome, I looked at the artwork and of course saw you have this big forest scene in the background with all the snow and the owlbear. So I decided to go down that road. So what you receive when you order this mod is you get this whole scene here. The idea is, of course, that, since there's that owlbear in the art, you have your adventurer's campsite here with a campfire going, and, owlbear comes in and raids your campsite and chases you out. So when you order the mod, you'll get the scene right here. You'll get the owlbear, who will have a threaded rod pre-inserted. Sorry about that, owlbear. And you also get a couple of lights. You get a common matrix light, a little extension, fire post light, and this little hex spacer for a different size. I already stuck it on the owlbear here for the demo, but in any case, this is what you'll receive, and the installation itself is pretty easy, so I'm going to walk you through that. So since you're dealing with wiring and stuff, make sure you turn your game off, and your first step is going to be to lift the playfield and set it on the little rubber feet so the playfield is just extended slightly out of the game. That'll be enough to get you access to everything you need above and below the playfield here. When we put this scene in, this whole area, this plastic, upper plastic, and the dome, this will be completely removed, and the scene will replace all of that. So first step, pull out the playfield and turn off your power. Okay, so with the playfield pulled out and set on the little rubber feet here, this gives you enough access to this whole area to do the work above and below. So next step is going to be to remove this upper plastic. To do that, you need to trim off this little zip tie here that holds this wire on, and you need to undo this. So you'll undo this screw on top to take this light off, and then you'll unthread this hex spacer to remove that. There's a washer under there to remove as well. So pull them all off. You can kind of let the light hang off to the side. Just don't lose this hardware. And remove this screw and set it aside. And then we'll get to underneath here because we'll have to take this light off. So remove this screw, remove the light, remove this upper hex standoff, and of course trim off that zip tie before you do that. Okay, now with that screw and that hex spacer removed, you can see I've got my light kind of hanging off to the side here. I left the hardware kind of all sitting intact. Do so at your own risk. And then you can see here's the plastic loose. Now, we don't have to physically remove the dome because we're going to take this whole plastic piece off too, but we do need to detach this flasher. This is the little LED board, so we have to detach this because we're going to use it in the new installation. So you need a 5/16 nut or socket to nut driver or socket to get this one off. So remove this screw and this nut to get this light board to hang loose. Okay, so now you can see that I've got my light board just kind of hanging loose there. I put the nut just back on that screw so I wouldn't lose it, but now this whole piece is no longer needed. So you can just completely remove this, bag it up, put it inside your game so you don't lose it, and set that aside. Okay, now before we start doing any more work up here, another thing we're going to have to do is down underneath this bulb that you're seeing right in front here. We're going to have to replace that bulb, and we're going to install matrix bulb in its place. So what you have to do here is you come underneath the playfield, and using a flathead screwdriver or a 1/4" nut driver, you're just going to remove this screw right here, and the whole housing will come down, and that will allow us to replace the bulb in there with this one. Now here's the important trick. This pigtail that's coming off the bulb, you're going to need to fold it over the way I have it here so that when you insert this whole light back up into that hole, the wire actually comes down through the hole, because we're going to end up running the pigtail up into that opening right there. So when you reinsert it here, make sure these wires are pointed back down and come through the side of this opening by the housing. Just to demonstrate real quick, see, with the Playfield up like this and your door open, you can come in here with a nut driver to get right onto that nut there. Alright, here it is with the bulb housing pulled down. So if you haven't replaced one of these bulbs before, it's hard to show you with one hand, but you're going to just push and turn, and the keyed portion of the bulb will slide out the bottom. And then you take your other one and insert it, twist to the right, and remember, lay those wires down tight on the side. Okay, with my new bulb in, just want to show you how you insert it back into this hole and see the wires I have bent over the side. It's a tight fit, but it will go in and the wires can come out the bottom like that. Okay, just like that. And then put that screw back in that hole right there. Okay, next you need to connect this little 3-inch extension that I've provided. I guess you could have installed this before we even put that bulb in, that's fine too. But in order to do that, you can come up to the top here, and you can see you got a little slot in the plastic right here and the opening down below. So you can feed the extension down that hole like so. Yes, this would be easier to do before. So I hope you watched the video before you did the install so you can learn from my mistakes. Get down there. Here we go. Okay, so now it's through that hole, and then I'm just going to connect this to the end of the bulb right there. Once you're connected underneath, just double check on the top of the Playfield, make sure that the pigtail goes between these two metal rails in here, because if you're outside the rails and you're over here where my finger is, now you're in the path of the ball. So you want to make sure the wiring is not outside this rail back here. You want to be between the two. Okay, the next step is you're going to bring in this firelight that I've given you, and you're going to attach it to that end of this extension like this. Alright, so at this point you should have 3 sets of lights coming up through that hole. You've got the spotlight that was on top of this little tower over here, including the piece that we took off temporarily. You've got the flasher board, and now you've got this firelight as well that we have now tied into this light down here. Okay, so all these are here ready to get installed when we do the rest of the mod. Now your next step is the mod comes in and it sits flush against the surface of this plastic. We're going to remove this hex spacer and this washer, fully remove them. We don't need them anymore. And you're also going to remove this spacer, remove that washer, and then put this spacer back on. So you've removed this spacer and the washer, you've removed the washer underneath this spacer and reinstalled it. Next you're going to grab the little spacer that I provided with the kit and install it at this location. Now these 2 hex spacers are going to guide your installation of the mod, because if you look at the mod, you'll notice you've got a hex-shaped hole at the campsite, which is going to line over that one, and you've got another one at the north end of the campsite, which is going to go over that one. But before we do that, we need to get the lights installed on the bottom. So on the bottom, you'll see there's a cavity here, and this area on the right in this view is where the flasher board goes, and this area here under the campfire is where the fire bulb goes. So they should snap into place there, and you want to push them in so that they're above the bottom surface so they don't interfere with the installation. But orientation is important. Let's see if I can put this down and show you. Okay, so no, stay here. Okay, so on the bottom you'll see there's a hole, and that hole is for the light on the flasher board. So when you go to install this, make sure you're not trying to line up that hole with that hole. That doesn't work. The light needs to line up, so it's going to go this way in there like that. Okay, and you're going to snap it into that opening like so. And then on the firelight, do the light board first and then do the firelight. So you see you got kinds of gizmos on that side, but then here's the side that has the lights on it, so this side needs to face up towards the campfire, so you'll push that into that slot. So the wires on the firelight right here will end up passing over the back of the board that has the flasher bulb. And I'll show you what I mean as I install it here. Okay, so this is how it should look once you have your lights properly installed. So you'll see both of them are recessed below that surface so that they won't interfere with the installation. And you see that the wires all pass over to the right side and through that little slot. So now you're going to take it and you're going to line up this hole and that hex-shaped hole over the spacers and lower it down into place. You may need to manipulate these wires a little bit, move them up and down, to give you clearance, but the idea is that you got to be careful you don't pinch any of the wires below the scene as you install it. Alright, continuing with the demo here, so you can see I've already got this one started. Focus, there we go. So I got that one started, and I got this one started as well, and you see I'm just kind of holding the wires out of the way as I slide the whole scene down without pinching the wires. There we go. So that's fully seated on top of the plastic. Wires are clear. And now that we've got it in place, now you may want to tuck some of these wires down a little bit so you can actually come down below the playfield, grab that little piece that we installed, and you can just, tug it down a little bit to help pull these wires out of view and out of the way. So after you pull those wires down, this is definitely the trickiest part of the mod, but if you'll notice, you've got that little cutout and that notch right there. The idea is that the wires should not interfere with the installation of the mod, and they should go down into that little opening between the scene and the plastic down there. So once you get that in there, you should have a nice flat flush installation. All right, next step is to bring back in that tall spacer that we removed from here, and we're going to reinstall it without any washer or anything in between. There'll just be spacer to spacer right here at this location so that we can reinstall the spotlight. With that spacer reinstalled, now you can bring the spotlight back in. Remember to try to wrap it so that the opening between those wires goes over the spacer like that. You won't need to re-zip tie this to the spacer if you don't want to, because it's not really all that visible. So now thread that screw down and attach your spotlight. Okay, we're almost there. Last step is to bring in your owl bear. And again, the purpose of this threaded rod that he's been violated with here is to attach right here at this other hex spacer. So you're going to put him in here and you're going to spin him around. You may need to just kind of help lean this tree out of the way a little bit as you spin him around. Sorry, hard to do with one hand. Okay, your last step is to bring in your owl bear. So again, he's got the threaded rod inserted, and you're going to bring him in and you're going to thread him into this hole here. While you do that, so yeah, you're going to spin him around and around and he'll thread down onto that hole. You may need to just kind of push this tree a little bit out of the way as you do it to thread him all the way down until he's nice and secure and positioned how you like him. He should be right around this position when you're done. Okay, so now he's threaded down as far as he wants to go. He's got his back foot pushed firmly down on the snow there. So as you can see, that holds the whole scene in place nice and snug. And he's well secured, so he's not going to pop off. So there we go. So now all we got to do is put the playfield back in the game and see how he looks. Now, one other important thing to look at when you install this mod is as you're going to put your glass back on, do it really carefully the first time just to make sure you have good clearance. I've trimmed some of the trees as necessary to make sure you have good clearance, but you don't want to have one of those trees dragging across the surface of your glass. Don't want to damage the mod, and of course you don't want to damage your glass. So double check this carefully the first time you install this just to make sure that you have good clearance and that these trees don't touch. Okay, back in the game with the power back on. So this is attract mode. You see now you have your snowy scene here. You got your campfire twinkling. You got your lantern inside your tent flashing. Looks really, really great. Helps round out, balance out the scenery. So there you have it. I'm going to continue the video here just to show you some looks of how it looks during gameplay. So here we are in standard gameplay mode. Nice twinkling campfire.
On the road to you are being attacked by an owl bear.
We're being attacked by an owl bear. He raided our campsite. I want to give you a look at how it appears during dungeon crawl mode too, because the lighting setup changes a little bit. So let's do that. Alright, starting dungeon mode.
Welcome to dungeon
Okay, so you can
crawl.
see that the fire dims down a little bit, but is still lit and still flickers. And you get this cool flickering from the lantern inside the tent too. So kind of neat because you can see the structure of the tent. So pretty neat. So again, snowy forest scene from Rocket City Pinball. We've got other mods too. We've got this cool shield light fire animation. We've got double scoring light color changer. There you go.
Has begun.
Choose other colors to show up in there so it's a little bit more vibrant and clean. And of course I've got start buttons, coin reject buttons, and so on. So, and more to come. I'm hoping to replace these flashers on the back wall too soon with variations of what you see there. There you go. Thanks for watching. Reach out if you have any questions. RocketCityPinball.com.